Ladies and gentlemen, it's Football Scoop Podcast. It's a very busy day. It's Wednesday. We're right in the middle of the thick of things. It's college football signing day as well, which is insane. But here's where we are. 20 FBS jobs have opened. I think 8 have been filled as of this very moment. Things are fluid. I think we've seen 12 or 13 FCS jobs open. A couple of those have been filled. It's been a fascinating week. I've got John Bryce, Zach Barnett, Doug Samuels, college football experts, all three of them. Gentlemen, great to see you guys. If we're going to talk college football coaching changes, I don't even know where to start, guys. Let's start with Power 4. Why don't we? North Carolina, Purdue, UCF, West Virginia. Am I missing any? No, I think that's it. Those are all out there. We got some college football championships, conference championships, Friday, Saturday. Some of the guys coaching are up for those jobs. Do we think any of those 4 get filled before Saturday?
Any of the 4? I can't point to one that's absolutely imminent, but if you ask me to put money on one of the 4 being filled before Saturday, I would say yes.
My opinion would be UCF would be the most likely of those 4. North Carolina has a couple of guys in mind they'd like to be able to wait on unless they're wowed by somebody else. They have some guys who are coaching who have said, hey, I need to get through I need a full attention on winning a conference championship. I can have a conversation thereafter. So I think North Carolina's got some big sights, and they're going to hold off. Purdue might fall in love with the guy they interview, so Purdue might pull the trigger. They've got at least one guy on their list who is coaching this weekend that I know of. West Virginia, JB, I think they wait because I think they're waiting to meet with a guy who's coaching as well. So I think UCF is the one that might pull the trigger. Terry, the athletic director at UCF, is he's a decisive guy, and he's got the board's full attention, as I understand it. Board members have been participating in their Zooms already, and I think Terry's the type of guy when he feels like he finds his guy, he's going to say, "Let's go." So Terry is the one who's ready to pull the trigger. JB, any thoughts?
I would say my initial thought, first of all, is that it's been a little bit more active this week than I think maybe what we were anticipating, because so much uncertainty has surrounded revenue sharing in the landscape right now. And so many schools, even before Florida got things right on the field late in the season and really rewarded their faith in Billy Napier, a lot of it was uncertainty about revenue sharing, the scholarship, potential roster expansion to 105 men or 105 players that's going to be voted on in April. Those are things that I think were looming over this cycle. And then you had Mac Brown digging in his heels, whether he was really going to step down and just wanted to wait till the end of the season or not. North Carolina was ready to jumpstart that search. So to me, those are the themes that stand out the most as we get into the first full week of the true coaching cycle after the end of the regular season.
Good stuff.
So I have a question for the class. So Purdue's in the Big Ten. North Carolina has long been pointed toward as one of the sleeping giants of the sport. West Virginia has a semi-recent history of winning big. But convince me why UCF isn't the best job of those 4.
I would say UCF has obviously the most in-state talent. Now there's the most competition probably for that in-state talent. UCF doesn't have a deep, rich heritage of success, and I don't know where UCF is on NIL or booster money or facilities money or anything like that. So I think UCF has some legitimate fiscal concerns that otherwise on the surface, yes, the prevalence of in-state talent, the path through the Big 12, the ability to win right away, the ability to get everybody you need to get into school, those to me are all positives for UCF for sure. But I think North Carolina has made significant strides in its NIL. They've still got space to go, especially on the football side of things. And then North Carolina has the Jordan brand, and I also think that still really helps. Doug could speak a lot better to that because he's around young kids. He knows how much they pay attention to it. He's coaching them and helping shape them. So I'd be curious for Doug's thoughts on that. But when I look at it, that's a great question by you, Zach. But I just don't think that the depth of heritage is there at UCF, and I know the depth of resources is not there.
I do think the Big Ten money at Purdue is appealing to a lot of coaches. The Jordan brand most certainly is very, very appealing to high school kids, but that the high school recruiting pool is getting smaller and smaller as the portal gets bigger and bigger. So that might have a limited impact on high school kids. North Carolina is in a league that you got to feel like you can compete to win and do it fast. But Purdue is a spot that I feel like you can win 7 or 8 games and kind of walk on water there. I mean, you don't have to win 10 to be a legend at Purdue. It's going to be really hard to win there with Coach Sig and the emerging college football superpower of Indiana there in state that you're going to have to compete with. But Big Ten money is very, very appealing. But from like a recruiting standpoint, I think a resources standpoint, UCF is tough to knock down as the best job. The other thing, West Virginia is going to have a pundit every Saturday on College Game Day banging the gavel for the Mountaineers. So you're going to get some great eyeballs on at Morgantown, and Pat McAfee is going to continue to toot that horn as long as he can.
So, Doug, you bring up an interesting point I want to ask you. So you bring about Purdue and you walk on water there if you win 8 games, which I agree. Historically, Purdue, when they've won, they've pushed the envelope on the offensive side of the ball. I remember Drew Brees once threw 83 passes in a game when that was a heavy month for most Big Ten quarterbacks. So I know I'm putting you on the spot here. Obviously, Jeff Brom succeeded there as well. But if you were Purdue and you were in charge of the search, and I want to be on the cutting edge of offense because that's going to give me shortcut to winning, in what direction of the evolution of offensive football would you lean towards?
I think, when Purdue has been successful, like you said, they're chucking the ball all around the yard. Brom did it with his mix of flea flickers and air raid influence. But, guys like we've talked about already, the Tyson Heltons of the world that play on Friday for a conference championship game, I think Purdue has to start there and make them say no. But in order to win in the Big Ten, you're not going to bring in a pro-style guy and expect to compete in the Big Ten. You've got to be better than teams, or you have to be different, is what Spurrier said back in the day. And Purdue needs to be a little bit different. I don't think they need to be as different as a go-go offense type guy, but I do think their offensive approach needs to, one, attract talent that not other Big Ten teams are fawning over, and they've got to be an exciting brand of football to want to go play in West Lafayette.
I think North Carolina is far and away the best job out of those 4, to be honest. Expectations aren't off the charts. The way it's set up on the university, you're there by yourself. Football has got a great setup. You've got all the resources you need. The NIL money is growing. If you come in, you bring some excitement. All of a sudden, that NIL money doubles. So you got rev share first, NIL over the top. Basketball is awesome, so that reduces the pressure. The issue at North Carolina is above you. You got an athletic director, you got a president, you got a chancellor, you got 2 or 3 different boards. No one really understands how it all plays out. A lot of different people have different opinions. So, there's some of that. But North Carolina.
Yeah, Scott, I remember you and I were talking when Arthur Smith's name popped up in this search. And we were just kind of talking through, like, what's the connection there? What's the appeal? I remember you said that North Carolina, you got a hobnob, and he would be a hobnobber. And that struck with me because I don't know I've ever heard anyone use the word hobnob without just in that tense, but I thought it was appropriate. So in kind of who's the type of coach that North Carolina needs to target?
Well, that's a good one. So it does have to be someone who has some political astuteness and political savvy, who understands how that stuff works. But more importantly, somebody's got to go in there and win games. So like a Dave Doran would, NC State has beat North Carolina's butt several years in a row, but he wouldn't work at North Carolina. He's just too rough, too gruff. People wouldn't acquiesce behind him. We need somebody, he's the hot name these days, but John Summerall comes in there, he can kind of win over all parties. Smart enough, nice enough. The board would get behind him. The multi-layer boards would get behind him and could all get to know him. And he's willing to spend time with them outside of football, but he's so locked in and so smart, and he gets his staff to work so efficiently. Doug, you'd love the way they organize things. They're not grinders. They just work extremely efficiently. 365 days a year. They compartmentalize what they need to do when they need to do it, and they're ready for everything. So somebody like that, as long as you win, you're going to get the resources you need to keep winning.
I think Scott hit the nail on the head. I think the one thing, Mack Brown is a legendary coach, and it's really hard to follow up a legend to be the guy after the legend. But one thing that doesn't get talked about enough with Mack Brown is how he was a kind of a schmoozer, a hobnobber. Like, he'd go out and raise $15 million in a weekend. He was that kind of guy. So, can't overlook that aspect, but I agree with Scott. Like, a John Summerall could go in there, get stuff done on the field, off the field, be kind of a galvanizing force to walk in behind a legend and get the job done.
There are a lot of other coaches who've been where they've been 5-6 years, and they're doing fine, but this would be a chance for a new, fresh start. So there's a lot of coaches eyeing this one. There's been significant inbound interest for this job.
So I want to make an argument real quick for UCF as the best job. And you guys make great points, but just to make an argument, UCF obviously doesn't have generations of money behind it like the other four. But what it does have is the most passionate fan base of those four, along with a history of getting to the top under multiple head coaches that they've done it recently. I think if you got the right guy at UCF and says, hey, we don't have a roster of multi-millionaires that came from our school, but I bet you we can get 10,000 people to commit to give $20 a month to UCF football and go get the best coaches, the best players. I think you could do that. I think the right person could do that faster at UCF than you could at Purdue or North Carolina or West Virginia.
I did hear pitchforks starting to gather in Morgantown. As you said, the most passionate fan base was in Orlando. So
yeah, I don't like.
Yeah, I'm not sure with you, Zach, but no.
Okay.
I mean, look, they're a passionate fan base because they have 70,000 students, literally 70,000 students. They're one of the only schools in America bigger than either Ohio State or your alma mater, Texas, Zach. But look at that passionate fan base down the stretch of this season. Now they need reason to be passionate, and by the way this year dissolved into a puddle shows you that there was nothing about which to be passionate. But there's not a chance in the world that I'm assenting to UCF having a more passionate fan base than West Virginia. You let me know when UCF's burning couches, and I'll let you know that they're more passionate than West Virginia. West, by God, Virginia.
Deal.
Sean Tui was in that role, Zach. It was what you were describing. Run the collective, get a bunch of people involved, small donors, and did a good job. SJ. SJ is a really bright, intelligent, high-energy young man, very good politically, if you know what I'm saying. And they made some progress, but they didn't knock the cover off the ball. So I'm still voting North Carolina. But when we talk about passionate fan bases, let's talk about these group of 5 opportunities. And I look at App State, top 1. Passionate fan base, those dudes are all in. Boone, America loves them some football. Did they get Neil Brown? Did they work a deal out?
I think the ball is completely in Neil Brown's court, as we've been riding for a couple of days. I think he's been choosing between Charlotte, Appalachian State, and then whether or not he wants to potentially be a Power 4 offensive coordinator. I know he's heard from some significant power conference programs that would be interested in having his services as the offensive play caller. But they are working to try and finalize a deal with him in Boone. As you know, it's a great spot. Appalachian State has been close to the Eastern Seaboard version of what Boise State has been for much of the last 2 decades. App State, not as long a history because they had to navigate up from FCS to FBS first, but it's a great job. It's an awesome town. It's not too far from where I grew up, so I've spent some time there. Extremely passionate fan base, as passionate as any G5 fan base out there for sure, and more passionate than some power conference fan bases.
I think latest intel I'd heard is Neil had told Charlotte no thanks. I think he thinks App is a realistic possibility. They got to get the money right for the assistants. I think that's a big thing for Neil. I think Neil also has to be, realistic himself. I'm not going to be able to take all the same guys. So we'll see if they work it out or not. That would be a big move for App, I think. And we'll see what happens from here. All right. How about the most interesting situation? JB, we've talked about this a lot. Charles Huff has Marshall playing for a conference championship, and they're not going to extend him. It's not going to happen. No. So Charles Huff is on the blocks. He's out there ready to take a new job as soon as this is over.
Yeah, he is, and he's understandably got some options out there. Certainly, he's talked with Southern Miss, and I think that they've made it clear that he is a priority target for the Golden Eagles program. Once again, a program. Southern Miss was Boise State long before Boise State was Boise State, and then it's fallen on hard times, and it's not been able to keep up, and it doesn't have the facilities or the investment that Boise State has had. I don't know if we'll ever get a full book on the Marshall Charles Huff situation and how it's dissolved so poorly. I don't know if that'll be a documentary. Maybe it's not an ESPN 30 for 30, but a 15 for 15. I don't get it, but I'm admittedly, I'm a Charles Huff guy. I have a lot of belief in what he's done. I watched him beat Notre Dame here in South Bend in 2022, and it was not a fluke. He's gone and won at Virginia Tech. He nearly won at NC State last year. He's had other games that have been significant. He's taking Marshall to its first ever Sun Belt Conference championship appearance this weekend. 4 years, 4 bowl games, the biggest win in Marshall program history from an FBS standpoint with that win at Notre Dame a couple of years ago that prompted the governor, I think, to either be on the plane with them or to meet the plane as they landed back in Huntington. So that one's bizarre to me. I can't believe that they didn't extend him. But as you well know, Marshall also is positioned to move itself forward.
Yeah, I think Marshall has made the decision that they're not going to give Charles Huff an extension. And I think Marshall is already making their plans. I think they're going to move very fast after their game.
Can anybody here recall the last time a successful head coach was allowed to walk on an expiring contract?
No. I've been trying to think about that. Like, it's one thing for there to be splits, and look, I make fun of ADs pretty often. And full disclosure, I'm a terrible poker player. So if you can ever play poker with me, go all in. You'll whip my ass. Having said that, yeah, make those notes. Having said that, the Marshall AD, his name escapes me at the moment. He very clearly went to the poker table thinking that Charles Huff would be on an expiring contract and not have them in the Sun Belt Conference Championship game, and it would be no sweat. Well, Charles Huff has had them. They honestly should have never even lost to Georgia Southern. They should have finished, I guess, undefeated in league play. They blew a 10-point lead or something in the second half of that game. But Charles Huff has done a masterful job this season. He went out and made a bold hire of Seth Dagey and took him away from Purdue and gave Dagey the reins to the offense after Trickett had done a really fine job there. And so Charles Huff has pushed all the right buttons, and the Marshall AD is hoping he pushes the right buttons.
There are a lot of people who want the Marshall job.
I am a terrible poker player.
There are a lot of people who have seen the success Charles Huff has had, and there's a lot of interest. And I get guys checking with me daily, like, "Hey, really, they're not going to extend Huff?" Like, no, they're not. They're like, "Can I get in?" I don't call him. I don't know. I think Marshall is ready to roll.
Yeah, and they're not extending Huff, and he wasn't at an exorbitant salary. It's not like they didn't extend Huff and he was making so much money that they could no longer afford it. He's making about $750, which is very much median market price for a very solid G5 program. But there's been a battle there since Huff made his comments over a year ago about NIL and about fans being too hard on the quarterback, and that really offended the AD. And then the AD, I don't think we were all told, I believe, that the AD didn't like it that Huff was linked to the Georgia Tech job when it was open and things like that. Hey, if people don't want to hire your coach, you may not have your own job for very long. That's the way I see it.
This is a bigger conversation than what we have time for, but I wonder if Marshall, under their next head coach, if they experience success, if that has ripple effects throughout the industry, where the norm is the moment a coach has success, the agent holds the AD over a barrel and gets them an extension of leverage elsewhere. I wonder if you'll see more ADs being willing to be like, all right, walk, we'll go out and hire someone else.
It will be a fascinating case study. It will be, because they did try to extend Huff after the 22 season, and there was an informal agreement. And then I don't know if Marshall had a change in leadership at the university president spot or a chancellor spot. Something happened, and the verbal agreement for a new Charles Huff contract dissolved in the winter of 23, and then it never really got revisited in earnest after that.
Gentlemen, we've been on this for 20 minutes, and I've actually had texts about a couple of guys getting new jobs and one guy losing his job. It's that time of year. It's no fun. The only way you see brightness in this is say, well, there's new opportunities for everybody every time that something like that happens. I'm going to cut us off there. We got all sorts of stuff happening at FootballScoop.com. I do want to make a couple of quick comments. First of all three of you guys have dropped amazing scoop this week. Wonderful job. You guys are doing a great job. We do have to crown a Football Scoop Man of the Year. I feel like there should be a whole nother podcast for this. John Bryce, as the two-time reigning Man of the Year, would you like to do the honors and announce?
I would not like to do the honors. I will do the honors. I'm a terrible poker player. I'm a worse loser. And there are I might still have a ball cap and a pine tree right outside of my driveway from losing a game of cornhole in my own driveway that caused me to fling my hat up into the tree. And as I crown our reigning 2024 Football Scoop Man of the Year, I will note that I went to the finish line and through the finish line in 22 and 23. Zach was dubbed the champion a week short. So congratulations, Zach Barnett. I don't date as long at Football Scoop as the rest of this esteemed panel, so I don't know. I think Doug won it my first year in 21, or my first year was 20 or 19, but I came too late to be involved in the panel that year. So maybe Doug won it in 21. I did win it back-to-back, and so nobody has won it back-to-back since I joined except for me. But Zach, you are a gentleman and a scholar. You are a football prediction professor this year. You are the professor of predictions this year. I don't know if we'll bring you a bottle of fine spirits in Charlotte or if you would prefer a restaurant gift card. You'll have to let us know, but congratulations on winning, even if Scott failed to make you sweat it out last weekend by not sending out picks.
I did.
Thank you. I will accept the crown. I will note two things. One, I recall last year, and perhaps I don't recall the year before, but I seem to recall your victories, hard won and well-deserved, did come down to the very last weekend or the very last game. And my victory, I had a 6-game lead with 2 to play. So the course director decided we've only played 15 holes, but no one can catch them. So let's just call it off due to darkness. And this touchdown, as I switch sports metaphors, should count for 9 or 10 points because I intentionally started high stepping at like midfield way back in September, declaring I wouldn't be caught, and none of y'all were able to catch me. So if you want to throw excessive celebration on me, that's fine. But I just want to note that I started high stepping before I even crossed the line of scrimmage. I was Lane Kiffin throwing the play sheet in the air because I knew it was 6 points.
Last year we picked the previous years we picked all the way through conference championship game weekends, and then
Army Navy.
Yeah. And then this year, Scott ends it before Thanksgiving. before Thanksgiving. And it was not due to your lead. It was due to this man being at the beach and understandably not giving a damn about our picks.
Both things can be true.
Both things are true. And we wanted Zach to get a win. It had been a long time.
It had been a long time.
I like to share.
I'd also like to suggest that next year's last place champ has to spend 24 hours in an IHOP or something, some fantasy football punishment where you get an hour off for each pancake you eat.
Oh, wow.
That might just be a dream of Doug's.
Yeah, I would say I'm so burnt by this collapse of competition that I'm proposing we do a football scoop picks panel of spring games. And we pick the blue and the gold in Notre Dame, or the maize and the blue, or the scarlet or the gray at Ohio State, or it's the orange and white game at Tennessee. It's the blue and orange game at Florida or whatever. Let's get a damn spring sports picks panel.
I'm all for it.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. If anybody is still listening to this, God bless you. We're the Football Scoop staff. It's been a pleasure. We're going to keep writing every day. FootballScoop.com. That's where you see us. With that, we're out.